we look rich, but we're really poor is simply because we don't inform ourselves about money management and how it works.
The Bible would say our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
That is so true. There are agendas out there. There's a purpose of keeping information from us because I'm a firm believer that with information, you're going to make the best decision
Absolutely.
for you.
That was my point.
Without the information, you're going to be void of that, and you're going to make the decision that whomever's pulling the strings, you're going to act and respond accordingly.
Hey everybody, this is Henry Fernandez. Thank you so much for tuning in to the podcast. Listen, I'm really excited, man, about this podcast and the direction we are going in. We made it to over 50,000 subscribers. I'm really excited, really excited. We're going to take it to 100. Now, you can help us by making sure you tell your family and your friends and you forward the episodes to them on a weekly basis. Remember, we're on every Tuesday, so don't forget to tune in. And if you don't subscribe to us, then you'll kind of miss the notification, if you will. So if you subscribe, you'll be the first to be notified, I should say, when we upload an episode. So here's what I want you to do. I really have some good news, some good things that I want you to be a part of. So let's take a look at this, and I'll be right back.
Hey, real ones, it's Carlene. I want to give you an opportunity to support what we're doing right here at Henry Fernandez Podcast in a fresh way. We've got some amazing merch and even more on the way. Our team is consistently working on new designs. Guess for who? Just for you. And we're adding them to the store regularly. So by purchasing something from our store, you're supporting us financially. And that support helps us to continue creating empowering content that makes a real impact. So do me a favor, head on over to our website, take a look around and grab something for yourself, a friend, or even a gift for someone's birthday or for the holidays. And hey, we'd love to hear from you. So feel free to reach out to us. Contact us at podcast@henryfernandez.org. Let me say that again. It's podcast@henryfernandez.org. And send us your feedback. Thanks, real one. See you soon.
Well, welcome back, everybody. In today's society that we're living in, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think we all can agree about that. So my co-host and our guest today, we're going to be diving into something that I really think is going to, provoke our thinking. And hopefully at the end of the podcast, we would give you some real good information for you to use to prepare yourself for what's coming. Because as you know, I firmly believe that there is a recession that's ahead of us. And listen, I'm not telling you God told me there is a recession. I mean, let's just be honest. History shows that if you continue to spend without balancing your budget or having a balanced budget, making sure you don't take or spend more than what you take in, then you're going to end up in a deficit at some point. And I think, especially in America, we're going to end up in a huge deficit if we don't first balance our budget with government and in our personal life, the way we spend and so forth. So this is really going to be a podcast I really want you to tune in, to listen carefully, don't log off, because I know, when you start talking about money and you start talking about certain things, people are like, I want to hear that one today. No, you need this one today because you prepare yourself in a better way when the recession hits. So, of course, I've got my co-host here, Carlene, with me. I have got with me today Charlotte. Welcome, Charlotte. And then our special guest, Dr. Brian Hankerson. He holds a PhD in business, specializing in accounting. So he is the money man, and he got the degree to show for it. So welcome, Dr. Hankerson.
So glad to be here, Henry, and let me thank you for taking on a relevant, and a challenging topic that we're going to talk about today. We hear about it on the news, but now we get a chance to kind of flesh it out and discuss how does it impact us in our day-to-day lives.
Well, thank you. Let me just lay the foundation. Today's episode, we're taking an educational, non-political look at the current state of the U.S. economy. We will dive into key areas like tariffs, you know, that ugly word we don't like to hear, a possible recession, and what's happening in both the stock and housing markets. This conversation today is not about party lines or pointing fingers. That's not the intent. It's about educating ourselves so that we can make informed decisions as believers, consumers, and citizens. Proverbs 4:7, if you want scripture, it says, wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom. In all thy getting, get understanding. So I know, Dr. Ankerson, I'm going to ask him this very important question because, as a financial expert out there, I think he can help us to better understand in simple terms this whole idea of tariffs. Now, before we came on the podcast today, my co-host Carlene is worried about the tariffs. She's worried about the tariffs, and it's amazing. It's affecting everybody, because she then said, I hope there's no tariffs on weaves. You heard me correctly. She said she doesn't want... Brian, talk to us about this tariff, because you got to help a sister out.
It's not too far-fetched, actually. So let's kind of go to school a little bit. What are tariffs? Tariffs are taxes that are assessed on imports, all right? So tariffs aren't paid by the government you're placing a tariff on. So you may say, the U.S. is placing a 50% tariff on China. Well, China's not paying the tariff. Who's paying the tariff is the business or the consumer in America that's purchasing the products from China. So it's on imports and exports. Why do we have imports and exports? Where does that originate from? Where does it come from? Well, we have a global economy. Goods and services are purchased and sold all over the world from one country to another country. We can go online and buy goods and services from Indonesia, Mexico, Canada, could be anywhere. Well, that happens because those countries are better prepared to provide a product. They have an expertise in developing a product that they can bring to the market at a better price than you can get in your own country or you can make yourself. So it's a better deal for you. So some countries are very good at producing cars, some are producing produce and agriculture, some technology, phones, televisions. So each country has a specialty of what they can produce at a good price, and the other countries around the world buy from those countries. So tariffs aren't just a U.S. thing. Tariffs are worldwide. All countries have tariffs back and forth against different countries. So tariffs actually started way back, thousands of years ago in 1789, I think it was.
Wow.
Yes, 1789.
Wow.
Didn't know that.
And tariffs they're there for different reasons. And during those times, it was really to help generate revenue for the countries. You have some emerging countries, they're needing to generate revenue, so they're going to charge a tariff on the goods that are going to be purchased or imported. And then as time went on, the reasons for tariffs began to evolve. Sometimes tariffs are assessed to protect an industry. For instance, let's say your country is great at producing steel, okay? That's their main industry. Well, you have another country, let's just say Mexico, they get in the steel industry, and because their labor rates are so much lower, they can produce steel at a cheaper price. Well, other people all around the world, they're saying, I'm not going to buy from the U.S. anymore. I'm going to buy from other countries.
Right.
And so in order to protect that industry, the U.S. will then impose tariffs on goods that we may be purchasing from Mexico. Right? And Mexico is going to back off, and they're hoping they'll back off and say, okay, I tell you what, we won't sell you the steel because we need to buy agriculture from you.
Right.
And if you're going to charge tariffs, that's going to affect the flow of the money. So that's why it was done, to protect industries back. But now it's evolved into something somewhat political because now it's evolved to where, like in this day and time, the current tariffs are more designed to, yes, protect industries, but also to offset what they call trade deficits or trade imbalances. And trade imbalances happen because, like I said, we're buying and selling goods and services from one country to the next. Well, if the U.S. is importing from Mexico $1 billion worth of goods, right? And Mexico is importing from the U.S. 700 million, that's a deficit, right?
Yeah.
The U.S. is importing more than Mexico. And so the president, in this case, said, I need to equalize things. So I tell you what, I'm going to start charging tariffs so that we won't import as much from you in order to balance things out. Okay?
Yeah.
It doesn't always work, and I'm sure that's something we'll probably get in a little later. It doesn't always work, but that's kind of the impetus behind it right now. President Trump uses it to protect industries like the steel industry. He's using it to balance trade, and he's also using it as a negotiating tool, because there's a lot of things that they're negotiating between countries. You heard President Trump talk about China is stealing our secrets, intellectual properties. That all has to do with trade. So to try to stick it to them and say, hey, you need to start playing fair, or else we're going to impose these 150% tariffs. Crazy.
Right.
Tariffs really are supposed to be 1%, 2%.
Right.
And he goes for 150% for maximum impact, is what he's doing.
I think that's a really good breakdown. So thank you, Dr.
Sure.
Henderson, for that, because that really like helps us,
Right.
for us like lay people. Because I think, even as like consumers, we hear tariff, we're like, oh, hidden tax. Items, grocery stores, diapers, electronics are going to go up.
Weave.
Weave, right? Like, let's not
Let's not forget the weave.
let's keep the main thing, though, right?
And then I think, even when they taxed the washing machines, like even by 12%, we saw an increase in that, right? So I have a question for you,
Sure.
right? So should protecting U.S. jobs come before keeping prices affordable for American consumers, or is there some type of middle ground there?
So back to what you initially said about it being a tax to the consumer. Actually, it is, because when you think about it, if the U.S. is going to impose a tax, let's just say on vehicles, right, that are coming from Germany, all right? So that means the person buying the vehicle is going to have to pay more for the vehicle. The vehicle costs $10,000, there's a 20% tariff, so now they have to pay an extra $2,000 for that vehicle. Well, who's going to absorb that? The American car store, if you will, the dealer, right, that's purchasing the car from Germany, now have to sell it to the consumer, right? Are they going to eat that extra
they're definitely gonna mark
$2,000
that up.
and it comes off their bottom line?
Right.
Either it's going to come off their bottom line,
Right.
or they're going to pass it on to the
Right.
consumer. And that's exactly what happens. It gets passed on to the consumer. And that's not talked about very much right now, but that will result in inflation and will eventually get to what you initially started talking about, Henry, which is the recession, right? Where people stop buying and the economy slows down. So back to your question, should you compromise one for the other? Those things are kind of mutually exclusive, like they really can't even exist at the same time, because as prices are rising, the economy is slowing. You say you're generating jobs because now it's being manufactured here, but are you really generating jobs because the purchasing has now slowed down?
Right.
When it's being built here instead of buying it in Germany, we're not building it cheaper, right? The labor in Germany is much cheaper than the labor in the U.S. The car is going to cost more when it's built here in the U.S. than when it's built overseas. That's why they're buying them from overseas, because you can buy them cheaper. And so we have to let the free market take its course.
Yeah.
You really have to make it,
I also think that, the public really need to take ownership of assessing what's happening in our country, but also to be responsible enough to get the facts, right? Because right now, what I'm concerned about is this. We talk about tariffs, and I get all of that, but there are some industries that I feel will never come back to the United States of America, right? And if it does, to your point, it's going to cost a lot more. We get a lot of our products from China,
Right.
right? And all of these women were selling weaves, and all of these stuff that we buy. Even I just found out that a greater percentage of the shoes, any kind of shoes, comes from China, or I forgot the other
That's
country they said.
Yeah.
So, you know, are those companies going to come and set up shop here? And then if they choose to, that's about a 5-year or more process.
Right.
So the point the question I wanted to ask you is simply this. Put in the tariffs aside, do you think that based on how in just 5 minutes or so you were able to educate us on tariffs and how trade works and so forth, do you think one of the reasons why Americans, let's talk about Americans are actually poor, we look rich, but we're really poor, is simply because we don't inform ourselves about money management and how it works?
That's huge.
Yeah.
And even the Bible says our people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so true. What we have to realize is there are agendas out there. And information come to us and it's very palatable for us to consume.
Right.
But it comes to us with an agenda.
Agenda, right. That's it.
Why would our leaders tell us that prices won't increase? It's just not true.
Right.
It's already happened. There was a 25 to 50% increase in tariffs on the steel. Steel prices have increased by 16%, just like that. It's real. So there's hidden agendas as to why, or actually there's a purpose of keeping information from us, because I'm a firm believer that with information, you're going to make the best decision
Absolutely.
for you.
That was my point.
Without the information, you're going to be void of that, and you're going to make the decision that whomever's pulling the strings, feeding
Right.
you the information they want you to have for their purpose, and you're going to act and respond accordingly.
Right.
So absolutely.
Right,
But
right.
I think that speaks to, because even the state of economy now, what we're seeing is that people are starting to, first, prices have not yet risen. So I think everybody right now, I know with cars, they're buying cars now
Oh, yeah,
because
for
they're
end of the
anticipating
year.
it to go up. But what I've also seen in the past was that, you know, we've heard recession for years. I mean, I think it's even around COVID time, we kept hearing recession or stagflation or this is coming. And it really never kind of took place. So, I mean, I always just have questions about that. You know, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but like, you know, recession, I think a recession will ultimately come because of the things that are being like put in place.
Right,
And
right,
it-
right.
like, I don't think there's a way, because that's just how the economy goes. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up. But, you know, if you could speak to that, like, you know, some of the decisions or some of the things that are made, sometimes it offsets it or sometimes it brings it quicker.
Sure. It's really interesting. The economy is very complex, but it's almost like common sense as well, right? A recession there's a definition for a recession, which is you have 2 successive quarters of negative GDP growth. And GDP is gross domestic product. It represents the economy of the United States or any other country. Every country has a GDP. When you get a chance, look up GDP of the top 20 countries. You will be shocked at how huge the American economy is and compared to everyone else. It's incredible. But in any event, when you look at GDP and you look at the things that impact that, and you were speaking of recession, right? If GDP is decreasing, that means people are spending less, the economy is shrinking, it's not growing. So if it's shrinking, and there are other indicators that go with determining if there's a recession, like if there's a loss in employment, if unemployment goes up. There's another indicator which says if consumer confidence goes down. If there's consumer confidence goes down, that means people are not confident in what's going on in the economy, so they're going to spend less. All right. This whole economy is driven by consumption. All right. So that's why you see all these dynamics going on. Back to the essence of your question, do we anticipate a recession? I think the indicators are that we could have a recession. But here's what happens, and this is where this information isn't shared with a lot of people. The federal government, the Federal Reserve, has a purpose to make sure employment stays high and that the economy stays strong. So the Federal Reserve will do things to artificially impact the economy to keep it stable.
Right.
So on its own, the economy may be going towards a recession. Then all of a sudden you see a change in interest rates. Right? If it's going to a recession, that means people aren't spending. Typically that means interest rates are too high, companies aren't investing, it's too expensive. What does the Fed do? They lower the Fed funds rate, the bank lower their rates. Now all of a sudden people are borrowing, they're going into business, they're manufacturing, they're spending, the economy kicks back up.
And it's happening fast.
It happens fast. So that's why you see this.
So that's what happened
flow.
even before, because
That's exactly.
with the shifting of the rates and all that.
And
So
with that too, you mentioning just the whole how everything is working with the economy. You mentioned that it may happen. I actually have a little stat here that I'll throw in here.
Okay.
So in 2023 to 2024, over 60% of economists surveyed by Bloomberg predicted a moderate recession within the next 12 months. So, I know you said too, Charlotte, kind of feel like it may have not happened. I feel like we're in it. I think like we're like in a part of the recession with everything that we're seeing, prices going up, jobs, as you're talking about. You gave us a good definition of what it is, already, but I feel like we're actually there. But I also want to ask you this, if we're in the recession, like, do you think what could be prevented? What could prevent it at this point?
So once again, recession by definition is the economy shrinking. And the economy shrinks when people stop spending, companies stop making money. All right, so you need an expansion. Typically what triggers expansion is a reduction in interest rates. It stimulates the economy. What also triggers an expansion is a reduction in tax rates. When tax rates go down, especially at the corporate level, they invest more. All right, or if they have long ago in 1986, Ronald Reagan did the Tax Reform Act. And he had these huge benefits for corporations to invest, that they'll get this huge deduction. Well, corporations spent billions of dollars expanding their companies, and all of that stimulated the economy. It was like a kickstart.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that will really get the economy going again.
I want to jump in here because with what you just said, with the tax rate, because I know a lot of people thinking, give us tax cuts, and then drop the interest rates. But very few people, and especially you being an economist, is talking about balancing the budget. Because as you know, I'm not an expert, but you can give tax credit, you can lower interest rate, but that doesn't mean you are fixing your balance sheet. Your true, because you talked about doing things artificially to stimulate the economy. And in my own house, if I find myself, in a tough financial spot, I bring in $1,000 a month, just using that for example, $1,000 a month. My expenditure is $1,500 a month. I'm already $500 in the hole. Now, to go and take out a credit card, because I've got the credit score to do it, for $10,000, to use that credit card to help me pay every month my $500 deficit is not stimulating my life. It is actually putting myself in debt. So to that analogy, with this country, the problem we constantly have, and it seems as if our politicians are not fixing it, it is, okay, we do the tax cut. Okay, the big companies, they get the tax cut. That's wonderful. Watch this. They put money in the economy. All right? The question is, does that money help us to keep taxes down, like housing? I live in Florida.
Right.
Nobody's talking about dropping my property tax, okay, is that going to fix the insurance business? These are big ticket items for all of us. Is that going to help me say, well, okay, instead of spending $5,000 in insurance, now I'll go back to spending $3,000. My problem, Brian, is every time our tax dollars keep going, helping the rich, helping business owners, giving out these handouts, like when we had the stimulus package when COVID was hit. Some people went to jail for it.
PPP
and so
loan.
the PPP loan. Here's the thing. Who paid for it? That was not free money.
That was our money.
We're paying for
Billions of dollars. We're still paying for it today.
Absolutely.
So I'm just saying at some point in time,
Right.
we got to say lowering interest rates or giving tax cut to the corporation is not fixing our deficit.
Right.
We need to make a decision. What are your needs? I mean, you know this, there are porks in the bills. Get rid of those unnecessary porks and live within your means. And at the end of the month, if you bring in only 1,000, you spend 800.
Right.
So you always have to. That's a simple math.
That's a big
I don't have a
problem.
PhD.
That's a bigger problem, an inside problem. Living within your means sounds like, for some people, what does that even look like? How do I do that? Because they're so used to the spending. They're so used to spending to either make themselves happy or to live up with the Joneses or,
But
whatever the...
Don't think those in Congress and leadership don't understand what you're saying. They completely understand what you're saying. Deficit spending is a strategy. That they strategize to operate in a deficit. It's part of the budget. They're budgeting for a deficit. That pork is a part of it. Those special programs, a lot of the politicians, I know we're not making this political, so we're not going to one party or the other.
Right.
But a lot of them are there just to get reelected. What does it take to get reelected? It's so unfortunate that our balance sheet.
So we're cooked.
As you call, well, when you say I want my
There is
insurance
no
rates to go
resolution.
down, it's not happening. All right, I want my real estate taxes. That's not happening.
Right.
Incrementalism has already brought about that where you've become accustomed to paying at that rate.
So that,
Yeah, they're not.
So
It's
then,
not going
Brian,
back
here's the
down.
problem I have, and this is a spiritual part of this. The scripture says a good man, both sex, male, female, leaves an inheritance, not debt,
Right.
for their children.
Yeah.
So with that approach that you're saying, if that's how politicians operate, our government function, if that's how we are going to operate in our own homes, then our grandchildren they're all cooked.
Yeah. Well,
There's
so
no
much,
hope for them because again, I remember back in the 80s, I think it was in the 80s, American debt was less than $1 trillion.
Right.
It's a few billion
Right.
dollars.
Right.
Just that. Fast forward from the 80s, you're talking about 40 years.
Yeah, 40 years.
40 years, we're now looking at $37 plus trillion deficit.
Right.
And if we're not fixing it at the proper way, then what's going to happen is the next generation that we're going to leave them, okay, yeah, they're going to be working, but they're going, because somebody's got to pay this bill.
let me tell you how they sell it to themselves, all right? Because the U.S. economy is growing at such a rapid rate that we're so far ahead of everyone else, and we are. The GDP is so huge,
But we're spending.
but it's growing faster than the rate of the cost associated with the debt.
That's my point. Just because people spend.
Yep.
See, we are testing the temperature by how people are spending.
Yep.
Because that's what drives the economy.
Yep.
But as you know, in America, the average household, people are spending more than what they take in.
Absolutely.
So I don't buy the idea just because we are heavy consumer. When you look at our spending habit, that we spend more than everybody around the world, don't mean we got money.
No, it doesn't.
You know-
Because we're consumers,
You know-
we're deficit spending
You know,
too.
and
That's
we're-
the plan,
we're living
according
from a
to what you're
deficit as well.
saying, right? That's the
Absolutely.
plan.
And that's
Right.
the point. And I really want our viewers to understand this. At some point in time, we have to really examine ourselves and say, what do we really want out of life? All of us are on borrowed time here.
Right.
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 Right? We're only on this planet for a period of time. We have our families to take care of. And we have to ask ourselves the question, okay, we go out, we have our businesses, we work for people, we make money. Whether your government is giving you money or not. We have to be better stewards over what God has entrusted us with.
Yep.
And so I'm sorry, I know it's not popular, right? But if you make X amount of dollars, you have to get back to living within your income. So if you make $5,000 a month, you have to try your best to go back to saying, you know what, I'm going to spend $4,800. So I'm never every month have a deficit trying to get caught up. We need to, and I know the economy don't want you to hear this, or the business don't want you to hear this. You know, I'm telling you, now is the time for you to not open credit. If I were you, you know yourself, you know, stop spending your credit card, lower your credit card debts. If you can, pay it off as much as possible. And go back to how I was brought up. We were brought up where you don't purchase nothing you cannot 100% afford.
Right.
You know, used to call layaway.
Yeah.
Layaway, they put it in the back of the store.
Come and pay
And every month
right.
you come and pay a week, however you get paid. And when you finish paying for it, then you take the product.
Right.
We have switched that over the year. We're getting stuff in
Immediately. We want it
advance.
now.
Right?
Yeah.
And we
Now.
got to stop
Because
that, man.
and that's the whole purpose of credit.
Immediate.
And there's industries out there whose whole purpose is to get you to consume,
Yes.
to get you to buy what you can afford. If you were to buy based on what you have in the bank, you would spend money differently than you would using credit. Now, it's coming home to roost now. America's credit rating is starting to go down.
That's the point. That's what I'm
America's
getting
credit
at.
rating is going down.
That's
And
what I'm
what's going to
getting at.
happen, the money that we're spending, the deficit we're spending, all right, it comes from other countries and Americans investing, buying investments in the United States, buying bonds in federal
Buying
funds.
our debts.
And so we
hold us
owe
hostage.
Americans and we owe countries around the world.
Right.
Now, what's going to happen? We become less attractive because when our credit rating goes down, that means we're less likely to be able to pay that debt back.
Right.
And then now countries and individuals are going to stop investing, and it's going to come home to roost.
We only have a few more minutes left, but I'm telling you.
No, this
See,
is
with
good.
what you just said, this is the thing that pains me and hurt me now. Because that debt, we're going to pass it on to our children,
Absolutely.
grandchildren. See,
Absolutely.
in a few years, when I say a few years, 30, 40 years from now, I know for me, I'm not going to be on this planet, right? I'm praying to God to keep me till I'm 100, right? So I have 39 more years to go.
Yep.
Depending on your age, you have less, 20.
I know.
I didn't call your age.
I'm older than you, man.
I didn't call your age. Just deduct
like
the
that.
number.
It's like, oh.
Just deduct it.
It's a humbling episode. I'm like, I didn't think
It's
Henry just
getting there.
humbled all of us.
Here's the problem. The problem is, are you mean to tell me,
Oh my gosh.
watch this, some of us, we're not leaving our children's children inheritance. Watch this. We're leaving them with the credit card debt, the bills, because we have home. Watch this. A lot of Americans have home. Though they say the equity is in it, if they were to die, pay off all of the debts that they have and everything, that equity is gone.
Yep.
So that house has to be sold.
Yeah.
The kids get nothing.
Nothing.
And I'm just saying, where is our spiritual insight by saying, you know what? We cannot look at how the world
Right.
thinks about finances.
Right.
I get what government is doing. I get the purpose of tariff. I understand all of that. But especially for people of faith, that's not our kingdom principles.
Right.
You know, the scripture says, "Oh man, nothing but love."
That's right.
And because I used to be a big consumer, spend a lot. I was in debt. I did all of that. But I realized it is bondage.
Yes.
It is.
Nobody
Sure.
watching today can tell me if you are strapped in debt and you're spending more than you have, that you're at peace.
Right.
It's not possible. So we need to get back to financial stewardship. We need to get back to preparing ourselves because it's coming.
Yeah.
You know, to your point, we've been saying that since COVID, but they've been doing a lot of artificial things.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
It's
Just
here.
to put it off. And what politicians are famous of doing is they pass it on to the next regime.
Sure.
Pass it on. So if it's good, they get the credit for it. If it's bad, that's the other.
They did
I'm
it.
telling you.
Mhm.
So I think we just need to get to that point where we don't know the outcome of tariffs, what it's going to bring. We don't know the outcome of all of the decisions these business owners are going to make, whether they're going to bring their factories back to America or not. We, the believer, must make a decision now to say, this program, this podcast, we said a lot, we're out of time to educate you, to help you to make a decision. You know, we need to trade with different countries. It's a part of this global trade. But most importantly, go back to budgeting. You know, you've got this guy here, PhD in it. Find somebody who knows how to count and they're certified.
Yes.
You know, stop going to a farmer, a carpenter, a plumber, asking them for financial advice. You know, ask them to come fix your pipe, you know, and to come put up some walls. But you go to an expert and say, here's my situation, here are my finances, this is where I'm at. I can't keep doing business like this, because you've got to prepare for the recession. And you're going to remember me telling you all this. At some point in time, these people up in Washington, at both party lines, people in our cities, people in our counties, as one person said it before, a lot of them are in it for their own self-interest, just to get reelected.
Yep.
And when the economy tanks, right, who you going to run to? Now, you can go to God for fasting and prayer. You can come, I get the oil, I lay hands on you, and probably you pass out on the floor, but you're still broke when you get up.
Still got to figure it out.
You still got to figure it out, you know, and so forth. That's why we're here. Any quick last word, 15 seconds.
I'm just happy about the information. I think you shed a light on a lot. So let's get back to basics. I love that you said that.
Yeah.
I would say too, just for the life of the believer, I mean, I think you just really shed light on that, Henry, is that it's antithetical of the economy, of the U.S. economy. So we as believers really have to be stern and steadfast in biblical principles and stewardship.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'll wrap up by saying everything you said was so good about stewardship, essentially. But even with that, let's be diligent, let's be wise, right? Let's be patient in the decisions that we're making. The question may come up in a recession, should I still be investing? What should I do with the market and things like that? Let me tell you, the market has grown every year since there's been a market.
Yep.
Be a part of it.
Yep.
Yes,
Right?
there you
You
go.
can make money when it's up. You can make money when it's down. You just have to make the smart decisions. You can make money when it's going sideways. You can make money as long as you're investing wisely, getting expert advice.
Yes.
But make your money work for you.
Yes.
Right?
Make
And
it-
not by spending. If you're spending it,
Yes.
it's working against you.
Yeah,
But
there you
let
go.
it work for you.
Yes.
In
Yes.
an up economy, a down economy,
Yes.
or a sideways
Yes,
economy.
yes. There's some businesses and opportunities like real estate. I tell anybody,
Absolutely.
you cannot
investment.
lose with real estate.
Right.
If you're in it for the long haul, you know, buy real estate. You know, there's some other investments that are out there. I'm very leery of them, especially the new ones. You know, if they have no proven track record and so forth. But there's several. Anyway, we're out of time. By the way, you can invest in weaves. Weaves?
With a V, with a V.
That's
Weave.
With a V, with
Let's
a V.
make sure we get that straight now.
Weave.
We are out of time. Listen, my friends, I want you to subscribe to our podcast. If you're not yet done so, hit the subscribe button right
100K,
there.
100K.
Tell your family and friends about it and so forth. And make sure you go to our merch store and get one of our products. And I look forward to seeing you next time on the podcast. Take care. Hey, go invest in the weave. We'll see you next time.
That's what we should be talking about.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
vote for Henry.